What's a ham radio?
The Cadillac of ham radios.
Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast. We've got a great episode for you today as usual, but first, we have a little housekeeping to take care of, and I'm going to turn it over to Jasmin to let you know where you can find us on social media and where you can listen to the podcast.
Thanks, Ashley. You can find us on Instagram at Ham Radio Media, all one word, on Twitter at HamFro, on YouTube at Ham Radio Media, or using our handle HamRadio1983. We also have a Discord you can join, which is linked in the description of this episode. If you have a fan theory or question you want to share, you can email us at hamradiomedia@gmail.com. Ashley also has a fanfic on AO3 entitled Stranger Things College, which is also linked in the description. The podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and much more. If you like the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review. We have a lot of totally tubular stuff coming up, so be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with the podcast and all of our new content.
And then we get a shot of Jonathan beside a projector, looks like he's pointing at something. I think this is one of the biggest moments where people really paused and was like, okay, what is he doing? What are they doing with this projector? Why would they need this projector? How are they using this to solve the mystery? Jasmin, you have any theories?
Yeah, it's a very interesting shot for sure, because it kind of puts into context those previous images we got of, they're looking at something on a map, and they're clearly, looking into something, there's a mystery they're solving here, which seems to be, in addition to what we already know, and I kind of thought maybe that happened later, but this shot appears to be from episode 1. So I'm super curious as to what they're doing here. He appears to be pointing something out. We can't really see what's on the projector. So I'm really curious as to what they're working on. My theory is maybe they're pointing something on maybe a map or something. I'm also super curious as how we get from, if this is from episode 1, we're thinking, how we get from where we leave Jonathan as a character at the end of season 4 to this guy. Because, he looks in much better shape, which is good. But also, he's pointing to something, and I don't know, the vibe of this scene seems to be that other people are, taking him seriously, and, Jonathan that we saw at the end of season 4, nobody was taking that guy seriously, not even himself. So I'm very curious as to how we get from, stoner bro Jonathan that everyone's giving weird looks to, the whole season, right up until the very end, to, this guy who seems to be doing a lot better. He's pointing at something. He's part of the gang. They seem to be taking him seriously. So I'm very curious as to how, in, one episode, we seem to go from that guy to this guy. I'm very curious as to, how that happens.
I'm very curious about is the mystery that they are going to try to unfold this season. And not that there's not any, hasn't been any mystery in seasons 3 and 4, but this kind of feels like we're going back to more of the mysteries from seasons 1 and 2. But I was thinking the other day when I was rewatching Stranger Things, and I just wrapped up season 3, and I thought, in season 3, as soon as they figure out that the Mind Flayer is back and he's behind all this, they hit the ground running, and they're out to solve the mystery. And really, after they figure out that it is the Mind Flayer who's back and what he's doing and flaying people and all that, there's really, it's so fast paced. It doesn't really take its time as much as seasons 1 or 2 does. Now, in season 4, we go back to a little bit slower pace in the mystery solving, because Vecna, he's something different. He's something new that they've never encountered before. And so I just got to thinking, what if in season 5, it's more fast paced like in season 3, because we already know that Vecna will be back in season 5. Now, what he will be doing, not really sure, other than presumably messing with the Wheeler household. But I feel like just as they did in season 3, as soon as they realize and figure out, oh, that Vecna's back, he's returned, it's going to be off to the races, fast-paced, like season 3. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jasmin?
Yeah, I think you might be onto something there, because, after season 4 came out, the Duff brothers said in interviews, there's that quote people keep repeating about, like, we're not going to have time to, go into Steve's love life because it's just going to be pedal to the metal action. And we now know that that's not true. I mean, we don't know where Steve's love life is at, but there's clearly a large section of, the first half of the season where that is focusing on the characters' personal lives, which I'm quite happy about. So I do wonder if that was more metaphorical when they were saying it, more like the vibe. But I do think you might be onto something about how maybe what they meant or what they're trying to convey is like, it's going to be pedal to the metal like it was in season 3 because, we're going to know right off the bat what the danger is. Like, the thing with season 1 is they don't know, right? For a large part of the season, they don't know what it is. And everyone's kind of working in their own little groups. And then season 2, again, they know what it is, but, they're still trying to work it out. Whereas season 3, the minute they know the Mind Flayer's back, he's got Billy, it's like, go, 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 right? I think you might be onto something there that, since we know right away what the danger is, they know they have to worry about Vecna. They know he controls the Mind Flayer. They know all the monsters they've seen, and then Nancy saw more monsters in her vision. So they know what they're dealing with for the first time going into the fight, where in previous seasons they didn't. So, I mean, I guess they did in season 4, but that was kind of all over the map because they were so separated. So I feel like you're onto something there, that maybe it's kind of, they jump into the action from episode 1 because they know what the danger is, which is like, and they're together, which is something I don't think we've ever actually seen in the other seasons, because they either don't know what the danger is, or they're not sure, or they're separated, and they only come together right at the end. Like season 3, the gang's only coming together right at the end. And there's kind of that moment, and I was expecting that in season 4, so it's interesting they pushed that to the beginning of season 5. So maybe that's what they meant when they said that. Or maybe something, changed in the writing process where they realized they needed more of a balance where, like, we need to see the characters' personal lives and the fallout from season 4, but we also need the action and the mystery part. Like, maybe they just realized they needed more of a balance, which I'm grateful for, because I like the show best when there's a balance there between, going to high school and fighting monsters on the weekend.
Yeah, me too. And it's crazy. It's like these people, these characters, whether it be the adults or the teenagers, but especially the teenagers. And I actually was listening to an episode of Star Court Study Hall, and they were kind of talking about this with the siblings pairings, like with Mike and Nancy, for example. And it's like the only time we ever see these people actually be close with one another on screen is when they're fighting off monsters from another dimension. Like, it's not in like the reality parts, like on the opening episodes and stuff. They're very distant, and they don't really seem to, there's not, I guess, a kindred spirit, I guess you'd say, between them versus when they're off fighting monsters. I agree, Jasmin. That's what I love about the show so much, is the balance that they have between everything. I never really feel like I'm only watching a mystery, or I'm only watching a comedy, or I'm only watching YA nostalgia, or I'm only watching a horror. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always feel like I have equal parts of the meal on my plate, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think the show works best when that's the case. I think that was something that was missing from season 4 in a lot of the plots, and I think it was kind of, the aesthetic was so different in season 3, and I think that was part of the reason why those seasons felt so different from the first 2, because in season 2, I feel like 1 and 2, you had that balance of all the things on your plate. And from all the comments they've made and what we're now being shown, I feel like what they're trying to do with season 5 is take the elements from season 4 and 3 that people really liked, that like fans responded well to, that like felt like worked really well, and take kind of the balance from the first 2 seasons of that, you've got a little bit of something on your plate from, everything, rather than just, we're going to go really, like season 3 went really hard into the nostalgia aspect of it, right? And season 4 was like, okay, we're going to try something different, and we're going to separate the characters, and we're going to do these different environments. And like, I commend them for trying something different and not, just repeating the same thing. But I'm also very excited to see that more that balance come back in season 5, to kind of have this balance of all those elements that, something for everyone kind of thing, with the things that were good about 3 and 4,
So from there, we get another very popular shot from the teaser, and it's of Nancy and Mike, presumably at the radio station. We can't really get much of anything other than the look on Nancy's face tells me that whatever they're doing or they're looking at or talking about is not a very pleasant conversation. I don't know what would make me think that, Jasmin, but I just have a feeling.
Yeah, me too. Well, we can't confirm this. To me, it looks definitely like they're at the projector, just the way that Mike's face is being lit. Like there's clearly light beneath them, like lighting both their faces from below. And a projector is the only thing I could think of where that would be the case. So to me, I think the reason they're shown in sequence is, Jonathan is at the projector, and then later on Mike and Nancy are at the projector. Either that or it could be a light table, in season 4 when Nancy's working on the newspaper and there's like a light table. So something like that, something where whatever it is lighting them from underneath, because there appears to be light beneath them and then light coming from the top, which could be fluorescent lighting. So that's my thought. I think they're shown in sequence for a reason. And it's nice to see Mike and Nancy have screen time because, as everybody jokes, they have that scene at the end of season 1 where they're both like, okay, no more lies, no more secrets. And it lasts about 30 seconds. They both immediately lie to each other about what's going on.
Yes. No. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think that's one, if I will say there is one big thing I've always felt like we've been robbed of in this show is Mike and Nancy actually being on screen together for a significant amount of time, actually being a brother and sister, because I just feel like this show would probably be a little bit better than it already is if we had a little bit more of those moments between them. And it's a shame that we don't really see them, together a lot as a brother and sister. It's like these two, arguably out of really everybody else on the show, have some of the biggest struggles in their romantic lives with their significant others, and yet all they want to do is spend time with that significant other instead of with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like there needs to be more of a balance there, and it's definitely implied that these two, get along, spend time together in between when we see them, but
unless it's on screen, unless it's on screen, they don't spend time together, okay? That's the way I see it.
It would be nice to see them spend more time together on screen, and I feel like maybe they wouldn't be having so many issues in their romantic lives if they would just talk to each other, because I think ultimately, especially by the time we get to season 4, like if you take the first 4 seasons together, I think Mike and Nancy are having very similar issues in that they're struggling to say I love you, to express how they feel. They're more actions, their love language is acts of service, it's actions, whereas the people they're dating need words of affirmation. They need them to say it. You know what I mean? Like that. And there's a conflict there. And I think that stems from the fact that like, they're not a family that, we see say, I love you. I think Karen loves her children. I think they are close, but there's clearly a disconnect there. And I think if they talk to each other more and they talk to their mom, like they all talked more, I feel like that could really help them, through those things. And I think Karen's doing her best, but I think it's also part of the fact that she set this bad example that like, she's with someone that she's not in love with, has never been in love with, according to Nancy. She's not in a passionate, loving relationship. They don't say I love you. We don't see a lot of physical affection there. And so when their partners are like, I need this from you, they struggle to do it. And I think if they spent more time together and if they talked more, I think that would help them kind of work through those things. And I think they would have less problems in their romantic life. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, it looks like we might just get our wish this season, Jasmine, especially if something's going down with Holly. I can definitely see that bringing these two together for hopefully that moment. I feel like Natalia Dyer doesn't get nearly as enough credit or attention for her ability to portray expressions, like facial expressions. Like Millie Bobby Brown, I mean, for obvious good reasons, that's one of the big things that makes her such a great actress, especially to portray a role like 11. But I feel like Natalia Dyer is definitely up there with Millie. And even Sadie Sink, especially in season 4, I thought did a wonderful job with just using her face, her facial expressions to tell what's going on. Yeah, I definitely think that Natalia Dyer does that so well, and including this shot right here. And I'm so excited to see more of that this season. And that's one of the things I love about a good film or a good television series that's well written, well directed, well acted, is there are moments when there are no words that are needed. All you need to do is have a quiet moment with a nice facial expression that can portray to the audience what the character is feeling in that moment. And I will say that as a writer of audio dramas, that is probably one of the most difficult things about writing an audio drama is you can't do that unless you want a narrator to fill in that space to tell what's going on. And then if you do that, it kind of, it makes it all sound, because it takes away from the moment. And so with the audio drama, you obviously have to keep as much dialogue and sound effects as humanly possible. But I will say that that's one of my favorite things, not only in Stranger Things, but in a really good film, really good television series, relying on those facial expressions and moments of silence when they're necessary. And I feel like Stranger Things does that very well.
Agreed. I think that's something that Natalia Dyer does really well, and she definitely deserves more credit for her facial expressions, her ability to emote without words. I definitely agree.
And then we go from there to another wide shot at the school, and there is Lucas and Mike running through, I believe this is the middle school, Jasmin.
Because we get a wide shot of Hawkins High here, and something I noticed when I slowed it down is that it looks like they filmed a lot of scenes at Hawkins High in the first half of the season, which is interesting because in this scene, when you slow it down, you can see that not just the crew, but the students walking in are wearing long coats and jackets, and the crew members are wearing toques and fall jackets. And then, we had that scene of Mike and Lucas running down the school hallway, and they're also wearing jackets, which to me suggests that this scene is taking place some point in the fall. You've got a student on the left with a long jacket. You've got one student that appears to be wearing a blanket as a coat. Either that's just a really, really big jacket. But yeah, they're wearing stuff you would kind of wear in the fall, which makes me wonder, and since we've gotten stuff with pumpkins at the junkyard, and then we got the crew shot of them holding the pumpkins, it makes me wonder if these shots are from a Halloween episode, an episode set in the fall. So I wonder if the midway point, maybe these time jumps are more as we move kind of through the year. So we're starting off in April of 1986, and then we're moving through the summer, and maybe each episode is a season or something. Do you know what I mean? We're moving from spring to summer to fall, and maybe that's what we're doing here, because I'm looking at these outfits, I'm there's no way you'd wear this in spring or summer. Even the girl wearing a skirt's in tights. There's just no way you'd wear that in the spring or summer. So that really stood out to me when I slowed this down. I was oh, wow. So we're, and I wonder if that was the original plan for this season, or if they did this kind of adjustment, they elongated it to account for the fact that 3 years have passed. I wonder if they're trying to account for the fact that the actors look older. I'm curious, and I don't know if they'll talk about this after the season is released, but, was the original plan to kind of space out over the year, or was that an adjustment they had to make? Because their original thing was that season 4 and 5 were going to dovetail. And it felt like when you end season 4, it feels like, we're going to pick up right where we left off. And I feel like that was the plan. But I wonder if they had to adjust that because, they were supposed to start filming, within the year, right? And that's not what happened.
I definitely think that we are getting maybe a fall, winter aesthetic this season, which I personally am very excited about. Not just because I love fall, but because, number one, I mean, he likes it cold, so if Upside Down, Vecna coming into Hawkins, it probably would help that side of things. But also, it's coming back full circle, and season 1 was set in the fall. So I'm very much looking forward to the fall, winter aesthetic.
Me too. And you're right. Like, I hadn't noticed. I assumed this was the high school hallway, but you're right. Like, now that I've paused it again, the stripes on the wall are blue, but the ones at Hawkins High would be orange and green. So I wonder if they're going to get Erica. Because unless this is the elementary school and they're going to get Holly. Like, this gives me the vibe. They don't appear to be being chased by anything, so this is kind of giving me the vibe of, like, we gotta go. They're running to something rather than away from something. Because they appear to be having a conversation while they're running, which is, if something's chasing you, you don't stop to chit-chat, you just bolt. So I'm guessing they're either going to get Erica or Holly. Maybe they're getting both of them.
And we get a shot of Brett Yeoman, who I actually thought was David Harbour when I first watched this. So I guess this is our first look at Murray. And then we get a shot of Robin and Joyce down at a breaker. I would assume this is in the radio station. So my thought was they're in the radio station and this is either something has knocked the power out and they're trying to figure out how to reset the breakers, like it's tripped the breakers, or they've just moved into the radio station and they're trying to get everything set up and figure out how to wire everything. But I feel like the former is probably what's happening here because Robin does look kind of freaked out by what's happening. And I'm just telling you, like, I really am looking forward to this scene between her and Joyce because, Joyce freaks out too. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those two, how they play this scene.
Me too. I'm so pumped for this scene. It looks like they're going with a lot of, like, unusual pairings for this season, if this makes sense. Like, it gives me the vibe of, like, they sat down and they're like, who have we not seen together? And tried to kind of pair people up. Or, like, what energy would be interesting? Because, they've spoken in interviews about how in previous seasons, like, it wasn't as planned, right? Like, Dustin and Steve teamed up because they wrote themselves into a corner accidentally. Elle and Max become friends because Sadie and Millie had asked to have scenes together. So it wasn't as planned. And it gives me the vibe of, like, hey, this is the last season. Who have we not seen team up? What would be interesting? Let's try something different. And yeah, I think Robin and Joyce have kind of like a similar freak out energy, which I think I'm really excited to see, actually. Like, I feel like they kind of panic in the same way, which is going to be so interesting. I'm honestly so looking forward to that. And I'm also curious, like, I agree. I think either, like, they've tripped a breaker or something's knocked the power out when they're investigating. I'm also curious as to where Hopper is, because we don't see him in the other shot of the basement scene, or Elle. And to me, this implies that Hopper's somewhere else, because like, based on what we see when they clean up the cabin in season 2, like him and Elle, he gives me the impression of somebody who's, like, good with his hands, you know what I mean? Could probably do repairs around a home. So someone with a lot of, like, survival and, like, practical skills. So I feel like if he was there, he would know how to fix this, or he'd be the guy you'd send in there, right? He'd be like, all right, somebody hold a flashlight. I'm going in there. I'll fix it. So it's curious that it's Robin and Joyce. So that tells me that Hopper is otherwise occupied, because I feel like he'd be the kind of like the first choice in this situation. It also makes me wonder about where, like, maybe Hopper and Elle are somewhere doing something because, or, like, for some reason, like, for safety or whatever, they can't get to this location because Elle, can manipulate electricity, right? And electronics. So if the breaker has gone, I feel like she could just reset the circuit, like, with her mind, or she could just turn things back on. So I'm curious as to where they are, because this scene implies to me that they are not present. Like, Robin and Joyce had to go down there because they're otherwise engaged.
Well, I think, too, maybe this is more of a real-world answer, I think, would be probably because, we know David Harbour has been, I know, the first part of this year was filming the Thunderbolts movie, and Millie Bobby Brown has been on honeymoons for, the past few months, and so it could just be that they haven't been on set to actually film the stuff, because, this is only the first half of filming, and the way they film stuff is they may film episodes in order, but they don't film scenes in order. So maybe they just haven't filmed Hopper and Eleven's scenes yet because Millie and David haven't been on set. So maybe that's something they're doing now. I don't know because I'm not there. But that's from a real world perspective. I would say that's probably why. But if it's not, and we're going for on the show, I would say they are otherwise engaged. That's what I would say is.
Yeah, I lean towards otherwise engaged because I feel like they could, they could film around that. Do you know what I mean? Like, they knew they weren't going to be available. They could save that scene till they were. I'm sure there's plenty of other things they can film with the party with the other characters. So I lean towards there's got to be a story reason, because it's not like they were. It's not like they pieced off and didn't tell anybody. They know where they are. You know what I mean? The actors, they know where they are. So I feel like they could run around that, but maybe not. Like you said, we don't know. We are not there. So that could be it too.
Yeah, and I seriously doubt that they have given us every little nook and cranny of what they've filmed in this minute 45-ish teaser trailer. I seriously doubt that we are seeing everything. I'm sure they've filmed probably tons more, and this is just what they're willing to share with us. But again, I don't know. I wish I knew sometimes, but I don't. And then we get Sean Levy and Joe Keery in what looks to be in an upside down world area, laughing and talking. There's vines and stuff, but I wonder if, because there's a red hue on them, if they're not maybe in Vecna's Mindscape world.
I wonder too, to me this looks like a locker room, just the way the structures behind them. Although I'm wondering maybe either locker room or maybe these are glass windows or something. And I was thinking about it, and we got that crew shot of somebody in a room with this tinting, and then there's the other shot of the military guy also in red. So I'm either they're all chilling in Vecna's Mindscape, or maybe there's a location where there's red lighting for some reason. Maybe it's a siren, or an alarm goes off. Sometimes they're red in color. So I'm wondering if there's something in the environment, or this could be two different things. We could have the Mindscape and then whatever this real world thing is. Because this has the vines, the other ones didn't. So it could be either or. It could be this real world thing, could be the Mindscape. I'm really curious because I was originally thinking locker room, but now I'm looking at it and I'm could be windows. I'm really curious to know what this is. This scene, this set.
Yeah, me too. And also, Joe, aka Steve, here is wearing a red jacket. And Amanda and Marina from Star Court Study Hall, if you are listening to this episode right now, then you'll know what I'm talking about there. So if you are, you'll know. And then we get a shot of, I believe that's Ross Duffer giving a direction to Joe, and there's Charlie Heaton in what looks like Steve's car. They're obviously on a soundstage here because there's some lights and blue screens and stuff behind them. But this is also part of the same picture we got from Nancy and Jonathan in the back of Steve's car, and I believe it looks like part of Dustin's hat is there as well. And we know all four of them are going to be in this from the previs. But that pole you're talking about, Jasmin? Yeah, it looks like an antenna. They put an antenna in the middle of Steve's car, like one of those Like, at the bottom, it looks like, a grill thing, like, one of those antennas that twirls, like rotates, That's what I saw somebody talking about what it looks like. So I wonder if they're like going into the upside down and they're using this to communicate with the people back at the radio station, because it would seem to me like they would need a strong enough frequency, strong enough current to be able to do that. But yeah, how in the world they got this antenna into his car, that's crazy.
That's such a good catch, because I hadn't even noticed that. Oh, that's such a good catch. Because that makes sense, because in the previous, it was like a pole through the car, and we were all like, what is that? And people were joking about it being a stripper pole, and I'm like, what is that? But that makes sense. Like, in the previous, you would just have it be like a stick, because it's just a mock-up, whereas in the final, it's like, yeah, it looks like a rotating thing. And yeah, maybe they're, trying to pick up a stronger signal as they drive around, or if they're going to the upside down, they're using it to communicate, kind of like Cerebro with the, when Dustin was trying to communicate with Susie, like they're needing a stronger signal when they go down there. And I didn't even catch this Dustin's hat, but it appears like he's opening the car, like he's just opened the car door and he's gotten into the passenger side. Because that was one of my questions. I'm like, where is Dustin? Because okay, but if that's his hat, yeah, that's all part of the same scene where we got the picture of them, like Jonathan and Nancy in the backseat looking scared, and the previs of it looks like Dustin freaking out in the front seat, and then Nancy and Jonathan like screaming in the back as they fall through a field into the upside down, which is apparently I think from episode 4 or 5. One thing I do find interesting though is in the original previews we got, it was Jonathan and Nancy in the back with the giant pole. And then we just had the shot of Dustin. They didn't do the wide shot of him and Steve, which is interesting because it makes me wonder if they changed what they wanted to release. Because it seems like at first they were trying to hide the fact that Steve was in this scene, but then they gave us a whole bunch of images and videos of him driving the car. So I find that kind of interesting. And I'm also curious as to why this is Steve's car, because I'm like, listen, if they're going to put, like, Steve loves his car, man. He loves this car. It's a beautiful car. So, like, I'm curious as to why they didn't put it in the top of, like, Jonathan's car, because that thing's a rust bucket. Like, if you're going to stick an antenna in the top of something, would you not stick it in, like, the one beater car that they have access to? Not, like, the BMW, the station wagon, whatever Joyce's car is. Like, it's curious to me that they, like, that Steve would allow them to do that, because it's clearly through the roof. Like, he's gonna have to get the roof replaced after this. How do you explain that to his parents? That there's a hole in the roof? Like, I'm so curious as to why it's his car. Unless, I don't know, did something happen to Jonathan's car? Because, like, that's just, I'm so curious about that. And I'm curious, like...
Well, in season 4, 11 says that it's broken down. And so, I mean, if it's broken down and they didn't, unless they, rented a truck to haul it all the way back to Hawkins at the end, I mean, it's probably still in California.
Yeah, but they had to do something with it. Like, we see Joyce in the corduroy jacket and the top she wore in season 1 in that basement scene. So clearly by the time we get to episode 1, they've got their stuff from California. So did they just scrap the car? Was it shot up in the, like, on the attack on the house, or they just decided to scrap that car? Because apparently everything else arrived, so I'm like, did they just scrap the car? Like, I want to know what the fate of this car was.
And then we get a shot of Mike, Lucas, Will, Dustin, and these woods that they are in with the picnic bench look just like the same woods that Chrissy was in season 4. And Will is obviously walking towards a tree. And some people have speculated, he could be having a Vecna vision. Yes, it's very possible. But like his will visions, that he gets. And to be honest with you, if it was the clock and stuff like they did in season 4, I would hate that. Not because of really what it implies, but because, like, you did that. You already done that in season 4. And yes, I do think the clock is still going to be prevalent because it seems to be a part of Vecna and in his mind and stuff. But I don't know. I don't really see Vecna using that as a tactic again. And I hope they don't do that. again, just because I want them to do something a little bit different. But if you'll notice, there's like a big white sheet, a white screen behind the tree, and I did some research, Jasmin, on this about what they would be using this white screen for, and typically filmmakers use a white screen if they're going to be using a smoke or fog machine with it. So I wonder if Will is maybe having a vision or something, or Vecna is showing him something. And I mean, he's doing like what he did in season 2. So I do think there is something supernatural, Vecna related, maybe going on here. It's just a matter of what, not is, you know?
That's a good catch about the white screen. I didn't catch that. There's so many in these scenes, especially on like the fringes of them, you know? But yeah, I agree. I think it is probably either a Vecna vision or a trance of some kind, but I don't think it's gonna look the same as season 4. Like, they've been there, done that. And I also don't think it's gonna look the same as season 1 or 2 with Will. I think that it's going to be a Vecna vision or a trance of some kind, but it's going to look different. It's still going to be Vecna doing his thing, but it's going to look slightly different because, 1, they've done it, and 2, you know, Will's not stupid, and Vecna knows that. So, like, he's not going to try the same thing again. Like, he will be able to deduce, or maybe he's already seen through people's memories, that Will knows what happened to Max. He knows what happened to the others. He's messed with Will before, so he's not going to try the same thing because he knows that won't work. You know, he's going to try something different. I can feel this scene, though. Can't you just feel this scene where, like, the rest of them are arguing about something, and they turn around and go, "Hey, Will, what do you think?" And they're like, Will? Oh my God, Will! Like, he's either disappeared, or
Joyce. Go get Joyce! Go get Joyce. Go to Mrs. Byers.
Joyce is like, I was gone 10 minutes. I'm picturing her just like running in there being like, I was gone 10 minutes. Like, Joyce went to go get snacks or something, or like I don't know what she's doing. She's at work. She's like, I was gone 10 minutes, guys. Come on.
Well, I do feel like maybe this scene takes place like right after school because they still have their backpacks and stuff. So I feel like they're like, hey, let's meet up at, in the woods after school. Why would they want to pick creepy woods for this kind of stuff? But
I get it, because they need a place that's secluded. Like Eddie says, don't worry, nobody ever comes out here. So it was the place where he did his drug deals, so they know it's like private, and they need a place where other people are not going to follow them. So I get it. They're like, yeah, okay, this is like a private area where we can go to like talk about stuff where we won't be overheard. Although, I mean, I guess, yeah, Eddie would not, like, so they know this exists because like Eddie was the drug dealer, but they probably don't know that that's where Chrissy had her vision, right? Because
yeah,
Eddie doesn't know, and even if he did know, it's not something he would pass on. So they probably have no idea that Vecna is using this place as a hunting ground and that it's dangerous for Will. They're probably like, hey, let's go to like the abandoned picnic table out in the woods. It's a safe, like it's a quiet place for us to talk. And then they turn around, they're like, Will? Like, because either he will have disappeared or he's gone into one of those trances, like in this shot.
And then we get another shot of Will. Well, it looks like they're right before they're getting ready to film, because one of the Duffer Brothers is giving him some directionals on what to do in a scene. Looks like it could be somewhere in the radio station that they were in. One of the other Duffer Brothers is behind. And it'll be very interesting to see what they are about to film here, because the Duffer Brother is making like a grabbing motion with his hand. So it'll be very interesting to see what is about to transpire here.
Yeah, I wonder if he's grabbing something from, like, if Will is grabbing something from someone, or it's some kind of argument that's ensuing, or he's, like, talking with his hands and just, he's like, do it like this, like, trying to, like, showcase an emotion, or is he grabbing something, or someone? And I was also curious, like, this scene clarified for me, so a lot of the previous, like, behind-the-scenes pictures we got, we had this, like, thing in the background, like, these, like, light squares, and I originally thought it was part of, like, the set itself. But then seeing this shot, I'm like, it's a light stand that they've brought in to backlight the actors. I also think it's part of the radio station because this is, I think, the same staircase where we had the Duff Brothers, like, hanging off of it. and taking a shot with their cell phones in like an earlier behind the scenes pic that we got. And I think that was pretty early on. I want to say that was like January. So I think you said that like earlier you were like the radio station feels like this season's like Wheelhouse. And I think you're right. They seem to be doing like a lot of shooting at this location.
Yes, and again, I'm very curious to see what all with the radio station. I think it's going to be really fun to see them at the radio station. And then we get our first look at the man himself, Jim Hopper. And I'm not really at this point, just from this shot. I know I probably should maybe wait until official teaser, official trailer. But I'm not really digging the beard or his look just from these shots. But again, I'm willing to give it a chance, how it looks on screen. But maybe people will speculate, like, what's he doing here? Is he in like a hunting stand or whatever? And I think he's more than likely in the Upside Down. And I think that whatever he's doing, I think involves CGI, just because he like lifts up his arms and we don't really see him holding anything. So I feel like he's maybe gotten like some vines or something related to the Upside Down. That's what I feel like is going on here, and they're going to be putting CGI into this to make it look real.
Yeah, that's a good guess. I'm also with you. I'm not digging the beard. I think probably out of all his looks, I think season 1 Hopper is probably my favorite. I don't feel like this. Yeah, I don't feel like this is the best look on David Harbour. I'm going to be honest. Same with that. We got that behind the scenes shot of him at the junkyard, and like, he was filming Thunderbolts at the same time. So I don't know if this is because he had to keep the beard because he was doing both, And if they maybe, I'm wondering if maybe they worked it in by being like, oh, he has to be in like disguise in, like he can't make his appearance too obvious. He's got to, be in disguise, so people don't recognize him. But I'm also curious as to how that's going to work because, yes, it is true that like we see, Will and Jonathan get new looks this season, which, I mean, thank God. Good Lord, were their looks bad last season. I know it was on purpose, but, oh gosh, they did them so dirty. So super happy about that. And I originally thought, like, hey, they're going to integrate this as everyone's getting a new look to kind of change up their appearance because they're hiding out in Hawkins, right? The military's still after them. But then we get those shots of Joyce, and I'm like, girl is wearing stuff from season 1. She's clearly not trying to hide her appearance or change it drastically at all, okay? She's so recognizable in those shots. So I'm curious as to, like, how they're writing this in, because the other three characters, I'm like, okay, I get, or even Elle, I'm like, okay, this is them changing up their appearance, to kind of, disguise themselves and kind of stay hidden here. But Joyce doesn't appear to be doing that.
Yeah, and like you said, like my favorite Hopper look was season 1. And he looks so old in this shot here. That's what I'm not crazy about, because he's supposed to only be in his early 40s and he looks like he's 50, which is not old, but I mean, in universe it look older. And also, I get the reasons why, both in real life and on the show. But, I mean, it's a very small town. Hawkins is a very small town. Someone's eventually going to figure out that he's back somehow, some way, unless he just hangs out at the radio station or his cabin or whatever the entire time. But yeah, I'm just, I know it's not right to judge based off of a behind the scenes look. But yeah, I'm not really looking forward to Hopper's look this season. Or at least to start off with. Maybe he might change it up by the end.
Yeah. I'm hoping we get the clean-shaven Hopper as the season goes on, maybe, or a more clean-shaven Hopper. But the thing is, too, like, that was my initial thought, like, him and Elle were going to be hiding out at the cabin, right? But then we have that shot of him at the junkyard. And, like, there's a scene of Elle, like, walking through a field, and, like, she appears to be at the radio station. I'm like, what are they just doing? Prancing around the place? Like, I thought they're supposed to be hiding. Like, what are we doing? Are we hiding? Are we not hiding? If we're not hiding, why is he not taking his old job back? The other thing that I noticed when I was going back to the behind the scenes pictures was like in the previous stills they showed back in March, Hopper appears to have a shaved head. Like, it's kind of blurry. But the ones that appear to be of him in 11, like on the still board, that kind of gave me pause because I'm like, unless they were still just editing him or just doing him the way he appeared the previous season, maybe this was back before the strikes or when the plan was different because, him filming Thunderbolt and this season was not originally supposed to align. And so I'm curious when we get the season, how much we're going to see that, stuff in the real world kind of overlapped and they had to kind of deal with it because it wasn't originally supposed to align. They were supposed to have finished filming this and gone on to other projects like 2 years ago. So that also kind of gave me pause. I'm like, does that mean he starts off the season that way and then this is kind of his look part way through? Or was that just kind of they animated what they had?
And then we get a shot of, I assume this is in the Upside Down, someone being thrown by a unseen force onto some black pads. And some people have said like this is Vecna, but I don't really think it is because his hand is not like the Vecna claw hand. This looks just like a normal person, maybe military. So be interesting to see why this poor person is being thrown back by presumably Vecna, but it could be 11 too, so we don't know.
Yeah, my money is on somebody from the military, maybe that new actor that they cast, because I don't think this is Vecna. It's not, first of all, I don't think it's big enough. You can clearly see this person wearing shoes and pants, and they've got regular arms, so unless Vecna has really changed up his look this season, I don't think this is him.
We'll get to him. Don't worry.
So that's my thought. I agree with you. Somebody from the military, maybe. Again, I agree. It kind of looks like the Upside Down. So being thrown by some kind of supernatural force, someone with their mind, or maybe one of the animals just flinging them. But this gives me more the vibe of like somebody threw this person with their mind.
And then after that, we get a shot of Nancy, Jonathan, Steve, and Dustin. They're in the Upside Down or somewhere near the Upside Down because there's some vines behind them. And we also get a red beam of light. So I feel like maybe they're at an opening, like one of the rifts. And like maybe this is right before they go in Steve's car and go down into the Upside Down. But whatever they're looking at, Dustin is just like, what is this? I'm very interested to see how this team up works. Maybe not so much the older teens here, but how Dustin came to be with them.
Yeah, I find this shot so fascinating. Like, I could talk about this shot all day, because at first I thought it was the right side up, but you're right, there are vines beneath him, although it could be the right side up. Like, we know the Upside Down is invading Hawkins. So, to be fair, like, we're saying a lot of these shots are in the Upside Down, but for all we know, the vines have entered Hawkins by this point, It could be, It could be either. Because I don't know, something about the vibe of this shot, like you said, there's the beam of red light, so they're maybe looking at a gate and opening. It would make more sense if they're in, like, the right side up. Maybe, I wonder if maybe they're near the road, maybe Fred's gate, or maybe this is a new gate. Yeah, I don't know. But, like, yeah, Dustin's got this look on his face, like, what the heck is that? Like, whatever these guys were expecting when they showed up here, not what it, like, it's worse than what they thought it was going to be. And I'm also super curious as to, like, Nancy, Steve, and Jonathan teaming up. I mean, we saw that in season 1. Thinking about it now, I'm like, okay, they said they're coming full circle, so I feel like a team up between those three was inevitable. But the fact that Dustin is with them is interesting, because that definitely wasn't a part of season 1. Steve and Dustin teaming up with season 2. But yeah, I'm also curious as to how that's going to kind of play out. Because Dustin is definitely a very precocious kid. I'm just kind of curious as to how he winds up teamed up with those guys and not the rest of the party. And I was thinking about this. Like, obviously him and Steve get along, and Nancy's always been his favorite. Like, he clearly had a crush on her when he was younger. But I was thinking about this, and the only scene I can think of where Jonathan and Dustin have any, like, concrete on-screen time is when they're at the lab in season 2, and Jonathan's trying to get the gate to open, and they're, like, pressing the button, and the power's cut, so it's not working. And Dustin, like, literally shoves him out of the way and is pressing the button, is basically yelling at him because he thinks he's too stupid to press a button correctly. And then eventually it opens, and it's got nothing to do with Dustin, but he's convinced it was him. And I was like, I'm so curious to see how this happens, because to go from like, I think you're too stupid to press a button correctly, basically, to like, let's all team up and save the world together. Like, that's a pretty big leap. So I'm really curious as to like, how did Dustin wind up with this group? And like, how do we get from that, if we watch his, his interaction with Nancy in season 4, or like he's making digs at Steve at the end of season 4. So I'm like, I'm very curious as to how we get from, I don't like you, I don't want to spend time with you, I think you're stupid, on all fronts, to let's all team up and save the world. Like, I'm very curious as to how we somehow get to this point by episode 4 and 5. Like, if you said, who do you think is going to pair up this season, I don't think I would have said this group. Also, like, Nancy's got what looks like a rifle with her. Clearly they're taking that into the Upside Down, but if they are going to the Upside Down, like, they don't have the kind of tactical gear they had in season 4 when they went down there. So I'm also curious about that. Like, they don't seem as highly equipped as they did before. I'm also hoping they're going to address the fact that, like, season 1, Hopper and Joyce are, like, in hazmat suits. Everyone's just walking into the Upside Down all willy-nilly. No masks, no hazmat suits. Like, I don't know if Brenner just lied, if they thought the atmosphere was toxic and it's not, but they make such a point of that in season 1, so I'm really hoping we're going to get an addressment of, like, is it not toxic? Do they just think it was? Like, and even Steve's making comments in season 4, he's like, I don't want to breathe this stuff in longer than we have to. Jesus, it's everywhere. So I'm really curious about that. They don't appear to have anything with them to, like, cover their like, faces. Or even the tunnels in season 2, like, they're covering their faces, so they don't breathe it in. So I'm very, very curious about that. And the other thing I noticed is that Dustin is wearing, like, a WSQK, like, radio t-shirt. So I'm wondering if he, like, either works the radio station or volunteers there, and that's how they got access to the space. I'm wondering if maybe that's the connection to the radio station.
And then we get a shot of a new character, apparently some military character that's played by an actor named Alex Bro. But he looks to me like he's in maybe the radio station. I mean, yeah, the way they've done military characters the past 2 seasons hasn't been the best thing ever, but I'm willing to give this guy the benefit of the doubt right now, because he could be, maybe he works for Owens, maybe he's quote-unquote good guy, so I'm at least willing to give him the bit of the doubt. And then we get our first shot of Vecna this season, and he looks exactly the same.
Where do you think he's walking? Like, where do you think this is?
Well, I think obviously he's in the Upside Down somewhere. But I honestly don't know. It looks like a structure, but there's Upside Down vines, so this could be, in the real world. But I honestly have no idea. I thought a soundstage, but I mean, this could be definitely filmed on a soundstage, but it looks like he's in a structure. But he doesn't appear to be in the woods, because there's no leaves on the ground. So I honestly have no idea where he is. All I know is he looks exactly the same, which, again, we don't know if this is in present day or flashback, but also they could be adding this stuff in post with CGI. But yeah, I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed that he looks exactly the same. Like, doesn't look like anything that Nancy and company did really affected his physical appearance. But, we'll see.
So I thought that too, but now I'm looking at this shot, I just realized something. His hands look different, because in season 4, he's got the long claw hands, like when he reaches out for people. His hands look more like they're curved, like they're still pointed, but they seem shorter. They seem more like normal hands. And we know they did that effect practically in season 4, so I don't see why they wouldn't do it this time. So maybe he lost the talons when they attacked him. And I feel like his head looks a bit like there's a bit more space up there, maybe. I also feel like his chest is kind of blocked by the arm. I don't know, I feel like maybe there's a few less vines on there. So I wonder if that's the part where he would have been burned, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder if he's lost maybe like part of his talons, and like he looks very similar, but now I'm just zooming in on him, I'm like, I wonder if he's maybe lost some pieces. I wonder if kind of where he was burned, that maybe he's lost some stuff there. I'm wondering if this is maybe the lab, because it's like a long hallway, or maybe one of the schools, because just there's like a big wall behind him. You know, like it seems like the vines go all the way up the sides, but not really on the floor, which is interesting because normally they cover the floor. I too am interested to know where this is.
Yeah, me too. And then from there we get, this is obviously Will from when he was in the Upside Down in season 1. He's falling apparently out of a tree, and some people have speculated like this is when he first like gets taken in, by the Demogorgon. But I don't know. I mean, like as far as we know, like when the Demogorgon pulled him in through the opening in the shed, I don't think this is when he first goes in. I think he's maybe trying to escape, and he like fell. I don't know. This is very interesting. But again, I think it does help that we literally know really nothing of his time in the Upside Down in season 1. A few little things, but we don't really see him. So I think for the showrunners, this is their perfect opportunity for them to do these things. So I will say this will be very interesting to see what's going on here. Maybe if this is part of the cold open. So yeah, I will say this was a very interesting shot. And then after that, we get a shot of the Duffer Brothers looking at cell phone. I guess maybe they were just like taking a picture or something, doing some shot listing or something, or maybe some notes or something before they filmed. And then we end the season 5 behind the scenes teaser with a shot of 11 in the Upside Down running from behind a tree, putting her hand up. So she's obviously fighting off someone or something.
Can we spare a moment for how bad this outfit appears to be? I mean, she appears to be wearing red shorts over, either jeans or gray sweatpants, and then a gray sweater and like a bandana. And the rest of the look I'm good with, but what appears to be shorts over top of something else. Listen, Millie Bobby Brown is a gorgeous human, and I just feel like they need to dress her like she's a gorgeous human and not put her in stuff that looks weird like that. So I just hope this look looks better on camera than it does in this shot, because it appears she's filming it doesn't look like prep. So I just hope this looks better like in season 5 than it does in this brief shot that we get of it.
I think the only way to really end this episode is just to ask the question, when do you think we'll get the next teaser trailer or full trailer for season 5?
Oh, my money is on Stranger Things Day, if they have it ready. I don't think we're getting to Dumb. My money is on Stranger Things Day. If it's not that, then I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember when they dropped the trailer for season 4. Do you remember what time of year that was, or if it was Stranger Things Day or not?
So they did that in April of 22, like a month before. But they had like 4 teaser trailers they were releasing throughout, like when they were filming, and I think that was obviously a marketing tactic because there was 4 places and the theme of 4, and I don't think we're gonna get that for season 5, because I feel like if we were, it probably would have already happened. But I would say that in terms of like a teaser, like a 30-second teaser, probably Stranger Things Day, and then the official trailer probably not until like a month before season 5 comes out. But I think it is, in my mind, very feasible to at least get a little 10-second quick snippet teaser on To Dumb. Now, will we get that? I don't know. But in terms of an actual like teaser, I would say Stranger Things Day, and then official trailer probably not until before season 5.
I'm just excited to get the full trailer. Like, the behind the scenes content is great, but I want the full trailer so bad.
I'm with you. you know that.
All right, I think that concludes our review of the teaser trailer.
Yes, thank you everyone as always for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned till next time on the Ham Radio podcast.
And that's our show. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and tell your friends. Our theme music is provided by Neon Knights. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast. Please join us next time, same dial, same time.
Over and out.